So today we will start, as we always do, with a short meditation. So please relax and close your eyes and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass, like watching a car pass on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. Okay, well, hello again, and welcome to those who arrived during the meditation. Kaya and Mariana, and hey, Lisa, I don't know if I said hello to you earlier, or Wendy, hello. It'll be nice to see you all. Today we will be exploring the soul trait of trust. Just trust in the divine. It is a challenge, but it also offers a lot of opportunity. But first, we're going to start with a discussion question. And that is what I previewed earlier. This is not allowing me to share or to go to screenshot view, but that's okay. We'll just leave it as is. How did you either give or receive light during Hanukkah or recently if you don't celebrate Hanukkah? Put this in the chat as well. Hanukkah is all about bringing us light during pretty dark time of year, and I think it was today, or maybe it was yesterday, was actually the winter solstice. So this is, for those of us in the northern hemisphere, that is dark.
It's today.
It's today. Yeah, okay. So a good time to kind of remember not that long ago when we were lighting candles and we were bringing light to others, or others were bringing light to us. So who would like to share something? Sue.
Well, when you first asked the question, I was thinking about we had a gathering of about 30 people to come to our house, Jewish, non-Jewish, and we hadn't done that, a Hanukkah gathering to light candles, and we hadn't done that since 2019. So this was the first time. We traditionally do a Hanukkah party, and when the kids were little, they would invite all their friends who weren't Jewish, and we'd done it every year. And now they're grown up and they're out of the house, and so then we invite neighbors and also Jewish friends. But we had a house packed, 30 people, the first time since 2019, and that really brought me light. It brought them light. It brought us all light.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Sue. Who's that on the phone?
Center for transportation. Obviously, the bigger the
Sorry, who's on the phone?
Let's see. This is Martin.
Hey, Martin.
Can you
Well,
hear me? Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. I'm driving, but I'm on the phone.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you were somebody we knew. So
Thank you.
so glad you can make it. Joanne.
Yes. Hi. So I, I have been doing this thing my friends and I determined since 2005 that I called Latka Fest. And in 2005, I think I had 3 people over. And probably during the first couple of years of COVID, I didn't have anybody, but I think I did in 2022, maybe 5 people. And this Hanukkah, at first it was like, I don't know, do I really feel up to this? Because I had like 3 months of not feeling great. Then I started feeling better and wound up inviting 10 people, and my son invited 5 people. So we had, and I have a small 1 bedroom apartment, but I asked some friends to bring extra folding chairs, and I make, well, I usually do all the latkes, but this year I was so happy because my son, daughter-in-law, and my young cousin all did all the grating and the frying, most of it. At the end, I made some cheese latkes, but it was wonderful, and I felt so good. I felt so happy and so glad I did that. I also went to some other people's houses for lunch and for Hanukkah, and we had Hanukkah at the shul. But actually having guests over gives me a lot of joy, and with like good friends and a couple of family, and it was great. And Andrew's friends were great, and I played after all my guests left. I played some trivia game with them called Chameleon. But anyway, which I was bad at. But anyway, I had a wonderful time. So it was great.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Well, 2 stories about coming together in big groups. And, if we each have a divine spark and we bring all those sparks together, it brings a lot of light. Bonnie.
So I'm very grateful for Zoom because my kids live not here. Only one of my 4 kids does. And so we did Zoom lighting as we've done every year. And we even did a Friday afternoon, even though Hanukkah was essentially ready to be over, because that was the only date I could get everybody together. So I'm very grateful to Zoom. I'm not grateful for COVID, but the use of Zoom. And then just we had a big women's latke party at the synagogue, a Hanukkah party at the synagogue, and a Hanukkah party, which was much smaller, at a friend's house. And she purposely made it smaller because she wanted to be able to really spend time with her guests. And I just, it was a hard holiday for me. It really was. And I think for many people on the Zoom, it may have been also. I'm still not through what happened on October 7th, and it just impacts everything that I do. But I did a change in the mindset, and said it's Hanukkah, and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it. So thank you for bringing this up. And Joanne, you look great. I hope you feel as good as you look.
Probably better than I look.
Well, so happy to hear that you're feeling better. That is,
Yeah, thank God. I'm very grateful for that.
Elisa, and then Linda.
Well, I got together with my sister for one night of Hanukkah. And then after Hanukkah, because my son had to, he came from a distance to see me, to visit me after Hanukkah. And I exchanged gifts with my son, and we went on a hike. It was very enjoyable.
Very nice. Thank you.
Yes.
Linda.
Well, Bonnie, I just wanted to thank you for sharing with us the balance once darkness and light. It matters to me that people are willing to talk about both sides. And it's helpful for me to know that people also experience joy because I could tip easily. So thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Anyone else care to share or comment? Yes, Kaya.
I can share. Actually, I bought myself this year. This was my light for the year because I have a cat. And so I finally got myself, I decided this year I'm going to have Hanukkah because I didn't have one. I have candle ones, but I haven't been lighting them because I'm afraid of the cat, knocking it over or something. So I'm actually happy that I had this. But that was about my Hanukkah.
Okay.
There was not much a family or anything like that. And I miss that part of the fun and the joy, but at least I got to light my lights.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm glad you got to light your light too. Nancy, we're talking about ways that we either received light or gave light, either in Hanukkah or for those who don't celebrate Hanukkah, just something else, something that may have happened recently. So I think next up is probably Frank, since we heard from Linda a second ago.
Yeah. So several things. We belong to a chavura that's been getting together for like more than 30 years. So Hanukkah is a big deal. So we got together and did our Hanukkah thing, and that was nice. I know that in our household, Linda was a little bit, well, we always put our Hanukkah out by the window, and she felt reluctant. So I honored that. And I want to acknowledge that when we're fearful, our light is also a little fearful.
Yeah.
So those are some things.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. And there's actually a discussion about that in the Talmud because it is traditional to put the Hanukkah lights out in the window and to share them with the world. But the rabbis in the Talmud acknowledge that in times of danger or where we're feeling unsafe, it's okay not to do that. And it's understandable that this might be a year where and I know not everyone was comfortable in sharing them in the way that they have in the past.
Just add to that. Can I just add to what you just said? Right in our book that we're reading right now, I mean, it talks about too much trust. So that I really like that you trusted yourself in what was right for you instead of what you were supposed to do. You did what was right for you and you trusted that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chaya. Lori.
I just wanted to share that my Hanukkah this year was also more low key than normal. I think as well as what Bonnie said, sorry, that, things that, are heavy, what's going on in the world, but the light that was brought in, we did get together with friends and I think it was the second night of Hanukkah and we had a friends gathering. And then one of the congregants wrote a play for Hanukkah and asked me to be in it. And at first I was a little reluctant, but I was really glad that I did. It was wonderful. People really, put the effort into their costumes and their parts, and it ended up being a lot of fun. And we were supposed to have a family gathering, after Hanukkah with my extended family, my parents, my sisters, and all of the nieces and nephews, but my parents actually became ill. They're fine, they're on antibiotics, they're still recovering. So that will have to be, I hope, delayed and not permanently canceled.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope your parents have a full and speedy recovery.
Thank you.
Wendy.
Okay, thank you. Well, my husband and I have been calling miraculous things that happen in our lives Hanukkah miracles all year for several years. But we did have a very wonderful lighting at sunrise on the 8th the last day of Hanukkah. We were at the pier at Huntington Beach for our son's 20th yard site, and it was absolutely amazing when the sun came up, and then you could see the miracle that had taken place. I mean, that's a miracle, but for 11 months, my husband tried to get this plaque on our son's bench for his friend who died in January last year. And when the sun came up, you could see both plaques, and that was a miracle. And it's we spent the day with both Spencer's family and with our two sons, and it was just, the light was pretty incredible.
Mm. Thank you so much, Wendy, for sharing that with us. Sounds like a very precious moment. Marianne.
So I have one grandchild who's about 1.5 years, and this was his first year to celebrate Hanukkah. And so he tried latkes for the first time, and he kept saying more, more. And and I gave him a dreidel, battery operated dreidel that lights up, and he just loved it. So he made it. He made the Hanukkah celebration.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Yeah, would anyone else care to share something?
How about you, Greg?
Yeah, I think one of the big highlights for me is we went to a Hanukkah party that we hadn't been to since before COVID. These were some friends from my first graduate school who came out here, and it was just really nice. The latkes were fantastic as always, and it was nice to catch up with them. And we just kind of met some really interesting people there as well, and some really good conversations. So, it was important. It was important to be with other people, important for us during this time, which has been and continues to be challenging. All right, well, let's start to explore trust a little bit. So may I have a volunteer? Whoops, let's see. There's got to be a way to. I'm trying to go to full screen mode here. There we go. So yeah, may I have a volunteer to read the first bullet and the second? And I can't see all of you, so feel free to just unmute yourself and read.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay, great.
Trust is a powerful sense of optimism and confidence based not on reason or experience, but on emunah, faith. You know that God is good and he's the only one in charge, and therefore you have no fears or frets. That's by Rabbi Tzvi Freeman, and it gives the where you can find it online. The second one says, many Mussar masters argue that faith in God is required for Mussar practice in general and is a precursor to trust. I disagree, which is why faith is not one of the soul traits I teach. And that's our teacher here.
Very wise person on the second. But not necessarily a universally held opinion, obviously, since some very distinguished and long line of rabbis have a different perspective. But we have these sort of two ideas in conversation, this idea of trusting in the divine, trusting that things are going to work out okay. And then there's this idea that we could still practice trust, even if we're not sure about the divinity, even if we don't have faith. So kind of given these two sort of different ideas, I'm wondering where do you come down on this, and what is your reaction to seeing these two points of view? Yeah, Marianne.
Well, I think the first bullet doesn't make much sense because it talks about faith. And then it talks about knowing, and those are two diametrically opposed concepts, in my opinion. So I would like to know that God is good, but I think maybe I'm more along the lines of praying for faith that God is good.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. I mean, can we know? That's certainly one conception, and it's a pretty common one. But you know, yeah, it's not necessarily something that we're all comfortable with. Sue.
So it brings up a question that always confuses me, the difference between trust and faith. And I think, I think of trust as in trust in God, and I think of faith in God. And I think what it's is saying to me is that you are saying that you can have trust in God, but you can still, what you just said, what Greg was, you can still trust even if you don't believe in God. I think that's what I heard you say, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. But I always think of trust as trusting in God. And I always think back to, what is it, the dollar bill that says, we trust in God, you know?
In God we
I mean,
trust.
In God we trust.
that's where it comes from. And then I just always get confused. What is the difference? What would you say? But you say that you don't teach faith. And what is the difference? Is faith require a belief in God? Is that why you don't teach faith? I guess I'm asking you a question there, answering with a question.
Yeah, when I first started American Mussar, I sort of set up these principles of American Mussar, and one of them was kind of that it's God optional, that not everyone is sure about the divinity, and that we can practice Mussar without requiring that. So it is kind of where does that leave us for trust in God? Because that is kind of what it is. It's not like, I trust the postman not to rob my mail. That's not what this is. And I think it's an attitude about life that's, it's kind of a benevolent universe. Like more often than not, things are going to work out. And does that benevolence come from God? Does it come from just most people, have some goodness about them? But what's certainly true is that most of the things that I worry about never happen. And so really it's a tool as much as anything to kind of combat, these worries that come up that, I can sort of trust, or maybe it's trusting that I can sort of handle the situation, whatever may happen. What if such and such happens and I won't know what to do? Well, if something happens, I'll deal with it. And I'll either deal with it well or I won't deal with it well. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, Sue, but that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, that's like trusting in yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the example you just gave, and that was very helpful. And I also like what you said about the things you worry about don't happen. That's so true, I believe.
Yeah.
Because we worry and worry, and then something else happens that we didn't even,
Yeah.
think about. So thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Lori.
I guess for me, I have it kind of separate in my mind because, I would say I have trust in God, but God gave free will, so I don't have trust humans.
Hmm.
And so I don't know, like in a deeper scheme of things, where that actually would fall or land. But it is it's just separate in my mind, if that makes any sense.
I think so. It's hard when we're dealing with something like either trust or faith because they're not really rational things. So it's not like we can always, I gave an explanation, but like, there's also a whole element to this. Like when I've lived for a few years, really with a deep sense of trust, or the Hebrew word is bitachon, it was just, there was a calmness and a centeredness to my life, which I could not really explain. And then after, a presidential election where I didn't like the outcome, that sort of went away for me. And I've never completely, and it's come back, and it kind of comes and goes, and that's sort of normal. So yeah, and I think what I'm hearing you say, Lori, is these are kind of two different channels. And that I believe that as well. And maybe that's part of the reason why I don't think you can have one without the other. They're different things, and I don't think they need to be a precursor for one another. Lisa.
I find the first principle more comforting and in line with my beliefs. I know that the God that we worship is benevolent, and that we were made in the image of God.
Thank you so much. Let's take a look at the spectrum of trust, because I think that kind of feeds into what we're talking about a bit. Oh, here we go. So, we have this idea, there's some level of benevolence, there's some, but we also have human beings, which are kind of really free agents. We have free will. So how does someone want to read the mantra and then maybe talk a little bit about the spectrum? And again, I can't see most of you. So
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay, thank you.
Trust in God, but tie your camel. And then the spectrum of trust goes from too little trust is fear, and the other end is too much trust. It results in recklessness.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm going to stop the share once again. So how does this idea of too much trust leading to kind of recklessness, what does that mean? What is that all about? Yes, Toby.
Well, my mother always said that trust was one of those things that required that you put in some effort and don't expect God to do all the work. Well, I mean, she wasn't much of a believer in God, but her idea was that the universe or whatever expected you to put in a certain amount of effort. And of course, that amount of effort varies from person to person. But I think if you believe that God is going to save you from all, there's a joke about, the guy on the roof in the flood,
Right.
and the rowboat coming by and all, and that really appeals to me. And I kind of get that. It's sort of like, okay, God has a lot of ways of saving you. The rowboat and the power boat and the helicopter and all of that. And if you refuse to take any of those solutions, then, what do you expect? So that's my mother's
joke. The person drowns and then says, God, why didn't you save me? And I sent you a rowboat and a helicopter, and yeah, so that's
Right.
an example. Yeah. Joanne, did you have something you wanted to add? And I see Wendy's hand as well.
Well, I did, but now I forgot what it is.
Okay, we'll go to Wendy, and if you remember,
yeah, you can come back to me. Yeah.
Okay. I was just thinking, I was just kind of in the middle of this sort of conundrum, getting this grant started for security enhancements. There were two groups on either side of the spectrum to deal with, and one group had too much trust and the other too little. Yet the outcome of both of those sides was the same. They didn't want to do anything. So I'm thinking of all the spectrums, though too much and too little kind of have the same outcome. So, you know, what it means for what it meant for me was just actually kind of not listening to all of the din and just going forward with the security enhancements grant. I don't know if we get it yet or not, but it did go in on the last day or the next to the last day of Hanukkah. So that something. Yeah, that's what I noticed. Too much, too little. Outcome same. Do nothing.
That's fascinating. And often people who are out of balance will sometimes show both extremes in different circumstances. And that may or may not be the case here, but certainly having sort of perceiving them as being kind of the same issue, I think is very insightful. Hiya.
Well, what I was coming up with was, as I was listening, is thinking about, well, trust is a two-way street, and therefore not only, do I trust in God, I may trust in God, but how about the person or whatever's going on around me? They don't trust in God, maybe, or they don't. So, who am I? I mean, just because I trust that God is here with me doesn't mean that another person, it's like the whole camel thing that you're saying, there's another being in that picture, and that's the camel. So, does the camel trust in God? I don't know. Is that a possibility? I don't know. But so in order for you've been taught, tie up the camel, so I think that there's certain things that we need to learn. We don't just automatically jump into trust. Trust in God is understanding what God is teaching us, not a blank slate, is what I feel.
Yeah, not a blank slate. Absolutely. Thank you, Kaya.
All right, I have something.
Okay.
Well, two things. One is one of the Psalms of David says, "Put not your trust in man or in horses or whatever, just trust in God or the universe, if you want to put it that way." I mean, I also believe kind of in karma, that people will reap what they sow if they're not reliable, or they're lying or whatever. And of course, you might wait a long time for that to happen. But, we just have to do our best, I think, and, trust it. Well, trust our own judgment, or I think I talked about this last time. Look before you leap is a good one for me, because you can trust in God, but then you have to use your experience and your cognition to get through life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Look before you leap is a good one. Just don't expect you're going to be caught. You're going to be okay. We got to tie our camel because camels tend to run. Well, I think as we've been talking about this, I've decided to do a different question for our breakout room. So I put it into just kind of given everything that people have talked about, sort of sharing their light and wrestling with this issue a little bit. With your partner, how would you like to engage with trust right now? How might it be helpful to you? And maybe with your partner, you can kind of try to write a little mantra or write an intention that can help you engage with this. So it's a little bit of an experiment. We'll see how it goes. You can percolate on that while I start setting up the breakout rooms. Okay, the rooms are open. And hey everyone, welcome back. So I am really curious, how were those conversations, and does anyone have like a mantra they would like to share? Wendy?
Mantra.
Yes, this is exciting, guys, because the three of us all had different, we're kind of on different places on the spectrum. But besides that, we all had these different perspectives and different ideas about trust. Yet we came to this mantra and we all love it.
Oh, good.
If you cannot trust, research.
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 Nice. Can you explain a little bit more what that means?
Well, I hope I can say who's in my group. Can I say? Martin?
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
Martin said that he liked what Ronald Reagan had said, trust and verify.
Mhm.
And Mariana was kind of in the same, she was saying, you know, the idea is that she would like to build more trust. So I was thinking about that, and I said, well, if you cannot trust, then what can you do? You know, then what should you do? And we came back to the trust and verify is research. You're researching until you find what you need to be able to trust.
Thank you. I really like that. And I'm giving a sermon Friday night, and that's really helpful. I've been trying to figure out how to end it, and that's not exactly what I'm going to talk about, but it's sort of inspired me. So, because that made me think of curiosity.
Well, Martin and Mariana and I are very grateful for you, Greg. Thank you.
Yes.
Nancy. Wait, before Nancy, Martin, is there anything you wanted to add? I know you're on the phone and it's hard to participate. Okay. So we'll go to Nancy and then to Elisa.
Yeah, if I'm saying this correctly, I think we found that there's different kinds of trusts, meaning different kinds of situations. So there's relationships, there's people, there's jobs, there's being out in the public, and I have one with a dog. And so I just got a puppy a week ago, and it's she's a handful. My husband's supposed to be watching her now. I'm not sure if that's happening, but you know, I have to trust that all goes well. And so I came up with a mantra that it will all work out in time, because I need to know in my heart, and not get resentful or anything, but know that I can't expect perfection right away, even though that's what I want. You know, every animal you bring into your house has to get accustomed to you. You have to get accustomed to it. And I need to know that it will work out. It will pay out in the end, but it will be difficult to get there. And for all of us who've had children, I didn't even realize it when I was raising, you know, a child. It's kind of the same thing, but I didn't think it would be with a pet, but it really is. And it's a big, I mean, I could put it in its crate. I don't want to do that all the time, but you know, I really have to trust that it will all work out in time.
I love that mantra. And I see we had Toby's kitty was also very interested in what you had to say as well. Alyssa, did you ever hand up at some point?
No, I didn't, but I could share what we came up with.
Sure.
Okay. Well, we came up with 3 mantras. Look before you leap, think before you act, and remember to pray.
Thank you.
Oh, I don't have to share that.
Joanne, is that what you were going to talk about? Is there anything you wanted
Yeah,
to
we were
add?
together. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Hiya.
Yeah, I first of all I have to say how grateful I am that the last couple times I've been with Sue, who's also from the Twin Cities.
Oh, wow.
So we're both Minnesotans, and you know, one of these days I trust we will get together.
Sounds
But
good.
anyways, I'm gonna let her share hers. But one of the things that I came up with was thinking about learning to trust God teaches us to trust ourselves.
Mm.
And I always, I hear people say, well, God is, I believe in God and I believe this about God, but do you trust God? So have you learned to even to do that? And therefore, then you can learn to trust yourself.
Mm. I love that connection between trusting the self and trusting God. And of course, we all have that divine spark, which is occluded by our baggage, and the baggage gets in the way and makes it hard to have that self-trust and self-love.
And then the other part of that, the last section of that is, and God trusts me.
Mm. Love that too. Sue, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I was going to, two things about that is that when we learn to trust God and God teaches us to trust ourselves, we learn from God to be compassionate, slow to anger, kind. So we talked about those qualities that we learn from God. And then the other thing was that when I talk about trust in God, I also think of a flip side of being trustworthy. So that I talked a little bit about when someone tells me something, and they trust it's just going to stay with me and I'm not going to tell anybody else, and they're trusting me. So I think about the flip side of being a trustworthy person as well.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. Okay, Karen.
So what makes it easy or much easier for me to trust over the years is that I've defined my expectations for what I want to happen if I put my trust in someone or something or God. And I don't know if anybody else here has thought about that. So I just want to throw out the question. If you place trust in God, what are your expectations? If you want God to keep someone, to make someone health improve, God probably can't do that. But for me, if I'm asking God to help me cope or be the best friend or relative or somebody to someone who's ill, I feel like I might not actually be getting that help, but I have that that's something that inside me that that makes me feel like I'm not alone and that I can do this. And so that's how I use trust, is that I have an idea of what I expect from whomever I'm trusting. And then I can go and trust and I won't be disappointed. My trust doesn't get easily broken because I haven't asked for something in return that I don't think I can get. Anyway, it was a thought, so.
Thank you, Karen. And I see your hand, Joanne. I will let you respond in just a second. But in this week's portion, when Jacob is going to Egypt to be reunited with Joseph, and he's probably filled with all this trepidation. He has this visit from God, and God says, don't worry, I'm going to be with you. So that is a big theme sort of in the Torah. And I talked about in the book, one of the ways I think about is trust that the divine will always be there to hold my hand, whatever happens, whatever's going on. So Joanne.
Yeah, I was actually going to say also, as a sidebar to what you said in the chapter, I have a lot of those little hamster bracelets. I could even send some to people if they get in touch with me, but I like that idea. Yeah, I think what I feel, I don't agree, and I've actually read that people who are prayed for do better health-wise than people who are not prayed for. And when I had breast cancer, I had a gazillion people praying for me, and this time too, and I did my own spiritual work. And I belong to a group that says Tehillim every week for a list of 6 sick people that we get from other, from each other, from our congregation, or sometimes if it's from the news in Israel. But I actually do believe it helps to pray for people who are ill for their recovery. And people on our list have recovered, or have improved a lot. So I believe in that 100%.
Thank you, Joanne. Marianne.
Totally off topic. Is there a way that we can watch your sermon?
I don't know. I will see. I'm not sure. But thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, we are just about out of time, but before we go, I'm pasting in the chat the mantra and also some actions that these are from the back of the chapter, but some ways that we can practice trust in the coming week and maybe take a look at these and close your eyes. And again, take in a nice leisurely breath and a nice casual exhale. And allow your mind to settle. We ask, how might each of us practice trust? There's that small action you can take to move a little bit more towards balance. Maybe it's tying the camel a little more. Maybe it's giving the camel a little more leash. Maybe it's trusting ourselves that we'll be able to handle what comes. Maybe it's surrendering the need for a particular outcome. Maybe it's asking for help. Now, in a moment of silence, just visualize yourself taking that action. Feel the comfort of knowing that what you decide to do, you won't be alone. You'll have the support of this community and the support of the divine. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes.